Hello everybody and welcome to this build video for the Messerschmitt Bf.108 from Kovozávody Prostějov using the fly tooling. Now, I mentioned in the unboxing that I very much like the Messerschmitt 108 and there will be a comparison with pretty much the only competition that this model has in this scale, the Hella one. That will of course come later. And yes, I'll admit that the undercarriage on display here is clearly leaning to one side and the doors are basically touching the ground. Yeah, not great, but we'll get to that. First, however, here's a little bit of info about this kit. According to ScaleMate, the tooling date for this is 2013. I counted 46 parts. I'm not sure if that's true of the fly tool or not, but that's what I physically counted of the ones that are used in this particular release. There are 3 decal schemes, and I've put the recommended price at £16.80. That's more the fly tooling. This was actually a little bit cheaper than that. It has also been discontinued, so your mileage may vary. Either way, you're looking between 15 and 20 Great British pounds, which puts it a little bit above the offering from Hella. So anyway, onto the build, and I'm cutting all the parts out as usual with my sprue cutters and then doing some sorting, and straight away you may notice we have some discrepancies with the instructions. This is the separate sprue and it just doesn't match. It's clearly a different shape, the parts are all in different places. It is clearly not what is on the sprue map, and thank you to whoever it was pointed out in the unboxing video that the extra sprue is likely to be where the original release has resin, and this one of course doesn't. Anyway, moving on. The floor has only one hole in it for one of the control columns. The other one is solid, so that will need drilling out. That's fun. And then the seats can be assembled. These are all very simple, one for the base and one for the back kind of seats. And then we have a couple of blocks building up around the floor, which the one in the center I assume had some sort of controls on it. I don't know what the one at the back for, but it creates a nice divide. There are of course no real locating pins for any of the parts of this kit. That is very standard for KP and other short-run manufacturers. It's a lot of extra design work, so they can't really justify it, and they don't really have the precision for it. So either way, everything is resting up against grooves, and a lot of test fitting is required. But as you can see, the interior actually looks quite nice, and the entire thing was painted in RLM02 before this Vallejo burnt umber came out for some of the detail. There are what I assume are armrests or some sort of leather padding, and the seats are painted in burnt umber as well. The instructions do give you the RLM number for the particular shade of brown. I didn't have it, and it's seats, so they can be whatever colour I damn well please, and I chose brown. Now, these seat belts. I've made other KP kits that have seat belts and they are identical. They're the same length, there's the same number, they don't correlate to the seats of the aircraft at all, and they're also very pale, a very white colour. So I'm guessing KP, whenever they include seat belts, they just chuck in the same seat belts as they've used every other time. So there was a little bit of artistic license needed to actually get these to fit, because one, they're very long, and 2, there's a strange number of verticals relative to, as in, you know, like arm seat belts relative to the across lap belts. So it's a small aircraft, you know, it's 1/72 scale and it's not large as a plane anyway. I don't think it's that noticeable, but a bit of artistic license because, surprise, surprise, the instructions don't really help. And anyway, this is what I came up with. I think it looks okay. It does the job, and through the glazing, again, you can't see too much. Well, I mean, you sort of can. You can see the colours, but not enough to really scrutinise too badly. And at least it does include seatbelts. It would look more odd if it didn't. Anyway, the fuselage halves can then be glued together. The engine is on a bulkhead right at the very front of this piece, which I'd already glued in. And then the seats have this one piece for the interior wheel well, and then it's just the top on the bottom of the wing. There were some fit issues from here. I'm sure this will come as a surprise to no one that has made a KP kit, but it was not exactly perfect. The issue stems around the way that the canopy, it's not the canopy, the way that the cockpit, the interior detail, fits within the fuselage and then onto the wings. And a fair bit of work was needed, and I couldn't work out if it was me doing something wrong or not. But here we go, here's the explanation. So the fuselage halves go together and there's a little bay in there for the cockpit. And I keep saying cockpit, it's not just a cockpit, it's the interior, it's all one lump. And it sits flush onto the base of the wings here, but there just simply is not enough space. It just does not fit. So I've had to grind down the base of the actual interior piece itself, as well as the top of the wheel well detail that you saw me putting in there. Just a lot of filing, a lot of trial fitting just to get it to fit. The thickness of the plastic is also a little bit too much for the sides of the interior detail, so I needed to slim that down a little bit as well. It's just very poor tolerances, but once everything was sanded, which took far too long, it did manage to just about fit. Next on the list of issues is the propeller blade assembly. You see here we've got loads of propellers provided, and there is this one which has a socket in it. In fact, they all do. They have this hole, and there is a mount on the engine cowling piece that has a pin. This is the one that the instructions say we need, and it has a pin. And of course, a pin and a pin isn't going to make for a correct connection in this case. So I cut off the pin on the cowling piece and drilled a hole. Spoilers, I don't think I filmed it because I was a bit frustrated. This was the wrong thing to do, but we will get to that as and when. Next, and we are at this engine piece, which, as I said, I glued on. It's a bulkhead earlier. Well, it doesn't fit either because the bottom of the piston heads actually clashes with the thickness of the plastic on the cowling piece. So this needed to be attacked with a file as well, just to remove a little bit. I mean, you can't see it anyway. You get a very, very basic view of the interior. It's like the inside, the centerline edge of the pistons, but you don't see anything on the outside. So fine, but had to hack at it with a file just to get it to fit, and even then it was a little bit tricky. The entire canopy was then masked off, as were the little side windows, which can then be glued in. I use standard contactor from Revell to do this. Just a tiniest drop. It's a much stronger connection, but of course there is the risk that if you get it on the clear bit, you will fog it up, which is not great. But hey, I've done it enough times, I'll take the risk. And of course, do the side windows first, because then you can poke them with a stick from the inside, whereas if you do the canopy first and they fall in, you've lost that option and you've lost that glazing piece. Next, we are moving to the horizontal tail surfaces, and they are of course supported by these struts, much like the Messerschmitt 109 was. As you can see here, there are 2 points where these are connected to the sprue, and they lose all definition and all shape, and I tried to cut one and it immediately broke, of course. So thankfully we have this styrene sheet. This is a little bit thick, the diameter is a little bit too great, however it was the only one that I had and I couldn't be bothered to go to the shop, so I used the larger one to make new struts. Finally then, we get to painting, and I'm using this dark blue RLM 24. As I said in the unboxing, this is the reason why I bought this kit. I've wanted a blue one for a very long time and just never made one. So now is the opportunity. The entire kit was primed in Tamiya Fine Grey Primer and then airbrushed with this Vallejo blue before getting a coat of gloss. You can see here that I've also painted the window frames for the passenger windows. The actual canopy will be done later. There are very few decals to this kit. It's just registration and the Guinea Airways logo, and I've had some issues, I'm going to put it that way, with KP decals before, where they tear far too easily. This time they're very sticky. They just did not want to move. The kit was glossed, nothing's changed about the process. They just didn't want to move when I got them on there. But hey, with enough arguing, well, I got them on, and only one of them broke, and you can't see that. I didn't actually film that one. It was the larger registration on the underside, and you can't even tell. I managed to piece it back together, but it did split once. The only other bit that I filmed was the painting of the canopy frame, which is aluminium, which you're going to see shortly. I will then mention the undercarriage. I glued those together, but I think partly because of the way that I sanded down the pieces from the inside to get the interior piece to fit, the tolerance didn't feel quite right, and I couldn't actually fit the undercarriage leg in. What I should have done is just trim the top off and then glued it in, but I believe they're a bit overscale anyway. So at that point I thought, sod it, that will do. And I'm also missing the propeller blade, which I painted in cream and then wood to give a nice wooden effect, because surprise surprise, The instructions were wrong. One of the propeller blades that was included in the kit but not mentioned as needed is in fact the one that this aircraft would have had, because photos clearly show it with a wooden blade, not a metal one. But anyway, never mind, we live and learn, and here is the end result. As a limited run kit, yes, there were some pieces which needed extra care and attention, lots of dry fitting was needed, and yes, a lot of sanding was needed. There was also a little bit of flash on pretty much every part, so it wasn't a lot of flash occasionally, it was just all parts needed tidying up. So it did take a fair bit more work, and in that respect, of course, this is going to be more complicated than something like the Hella kit. But overall, I think you get a really nice representation, and it captures the lines beautifully. With the inclusion of 3 decal schemes in this release and the myriad of releases with Fly that have almost anything that you'd want from a Messerschmitt 108, including of course the Nord Penguin post-war French license-built version, you really could just fill a shelf with this kit. The fact that this is a skill level 2 according to the box, I think is justified. It is certainly a little bit more complicated than you may be used to, although if you're used to limited run kits, I don't think it's anything out of the ordinary, to be honest. And I know that I'm not the best modeller out there, but I'm happy with this result. Somebody who's much more talented than me could really get this thing to pop, given how small it is as well, because it's not a large aircraft. I mean, it's similar to 109 in size, and they're not big aircraft either, except this one has 4 people in it. Oh, they're fantastic. And the colour I really like. I think Vallejo have done an excellent job on RLM 24, and it does match the photos and paintings and things that I have seen of the actual VH UZI. But for now, I mentioned at the beginning of the video that I would compare it with the Hella one, so let's get them both on the bench together and have a little look at how they are different and how they are similar and which one I think is better. So here we go, representing Hella we have this lovely German camouflage example, 7071 and RLM 65 underneath, and of course the KP one, the subject of this video. And the first thing I want to address is, eagle-eyed amongst you may have noticed the shape, especially around the nose, is a little different. See, it's much shallower on the Hella one than it is on the KP one. You see, it's much wider and bulkier, and the same thing is true of the tail, which is much larger on the Hella kit, much larger. There are also some other shape discrepancies around the wingtips. Everything's just a bit more finessed on the KP/Fly one over the Hella one. Now, you may be thinking, well, obviously the Hella one is wrong, but you shouldn't rely on Fly/KP to get everything right all the time. You never know, they might have made a mistake, but no, this one is right. I matched it up with some drawings that I could find. I say matched, I was holding it over the screen, so not exactly very scientific, but I found some drawings, and this one definitely matches the shape and feel of a Messerschmitt 108 in a much better way than the Hella one. The Hella one also has different undercarriage. You notice it's got an extra leg there. As far as I can tell, that is correct, but not all of them had it, hence why this one does not. And of course, we've got the struts, which are much longer on the Hella one than the ones that I made for this. Again, as far as I can tell, the shape is correct for the KP one and not the Hella one. And we also have a complete lack of exhaust on the Hella one, whereas I didn't show it being assembled, but we've got the exhaust piece in the bottom here. However, an honorary mention should be made to Hella. I actually went on the Hella website to look at their instructions to work out where to glue the things like the pitot tube underneath the wings, because they just were not anywhere in the KP instructions. They were essentially useless. So you can see the pitot tube there, part 40, just vaguely on the wing. There is the lumpy bit, the nodule. I have no idea what it is, actually. If anyone does, please let me know. But that thing there, whatever that is... Oh, it's a spotlight. I already know. Don't tell me. It's a landing light. Yes, I remember. The landing light is on this aircraft because, again, I found photos of it, but is not mentioned here at all. But it is in the sprue map somewhere as a piece that you are going to use. So... did they just get bored partway through finishing the instructions? And honestly, this is the biggest letdown of any KP kit. is that you need to first translate the instructions from what they're telling you to what you actually need to do. Yeah, not ideal. However, I'm used to it. Okay, I don't really have a problem with it. It's just if you're used to only mainstream brands, you know, your Academy kits, they're basic, but the instructions are fine, or Tamiya or Airfix or something like that, then this will surprise you. But if you know how to navigate short run kits, then absolutely the KP one gets my wholehearted recommendation over the Hella one, although of course it is more expensive. Unless you buy the Fly one that I mentioned in the unboxing video, where you get 2 of these and loads of decal options for basically the price of 2 Hella ones, depending on where you get them. So anyway, with that, I'm going to call it a video. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell if you want, or you can become a channel member and help directly fuel my addiction to buying kits, because yes, there is still room for more boxes. I'm not swamped, therefore if you can help, excellent. Otherwise I'll be both broke and surrounded by boxes of kits. But anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed this. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below, and hopefully I will see you again another time. Goodbye.